On today's show, did the Dallas Mavericks overreact in signing Jason Kidd to a contract extension, or is it just fine? We'll share that in our keys to game one on today's Locked On Mavs.
I'm Luka Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks podcast.
Mavericks, NBA champions. Bang! Bang! It's good, and the Mavericks have won the game.
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
Loyalty never fades away.
And welcome. You are locked on to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member and NBA channel manager for the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thanks for being part of the show and making Locked On Mavs your first listen today. With the best way you can help us grow the show is to listen every day on any podcast platform, like the video on YouTube, comment anything below. Let me know in the comment section. Do you believe that the Jason Kidd extension is good for stability or an overreaction by the Mavericks? Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. And joining me from 105.3 The Fan, the get right man himself. What you got for me, Reggie Adetula?
Hey, big shout out to Taylor. Met him outside the AAC in front of Game 6. Let me know. This is ending tonight. You were right, Taylor.
Shouts to Taylor. Shouts to Taylor, absolutely. And shout out to anyone that's in Oklahoma City or that will be in Oklahoma City this week. We're doing a fan meetup on Wednesday at the Collective on 10th Street in Oklahoma City. I don't think they know we're coming, but I don't know how many of us are going to be there. So we'll see what happens. We'll see if can we get enough Mavs fans that they kick us out.
Just tip well. It'll be all right. You'll be cool.
No, but it's a bar. It's a nice place. They have a good area to hang out. And so myself, all things Mavs from Twitter, Jimmy will be there as well. And then come hang out and see who shows up if you're here in OKC on Wednesday at 7 p.m. at the Collective in OKC. All right, Reggie. Today we'll talk about our keys to game one. We'll talk about what we think the Mavericks need to do in game one. I want to talk about some of the downside of the Jason Kidd extension. We'll talk about that. Can the Mavericks win with Jason Kidd? We'll talk about that. But we got to start here. We'll start with Jason Kidd signs a multi-year contract extension with the Dallas Mavericks. This coming on the backs of the Lakers firing their head coach, Darvin Ham, and Jason Kidd being kind of connected to that job. But also there were talks about extensions before this. So to me, this is not a complete overreaction to the Lakers job becoming available. There were talks about this before. Now, maybe you could read the tea leaves and read through the lines saying, well, they knew that Darvin Ham was going to get fired. And so then maybe. But to me, I look at this and I say, this is fine. It's fine. Even as the person who 2 months ago was on this show saying it's time. It's done. It's done for Jason Kidd. As soon as I said that, he answered all the questions that I had about this team and what's capable. They turned into the best defense in the NBA. They made it work on offense. Luka and Kyrie have worked really well, and that's the big key for Jason Kidd right there. The reason why the Mavericks are signing him to a contract extension is because he has Luka and Kyrie playing together in an amicable way. They have great chemistry. They play well together. They work for each other. And maybe another coach could have done that. Maybe another coach could have come along and got them to that point where they are right now, where they can play together, play well together, be effective together. But Jason Kidd was the one to do it. And Jason Kidd, he's proven that you can create a good defense around those two guys and that they can get those guys to play together. That's why they signed him to a contract extension. And so for me, it's fine, actually.
Yeah, man. This is in part personality management, but then also I'm going to preface this by saying I very rarely use these words to talk about people because I do understand we're talking about people, right? But also asset management. Who are your two biggest assets on this team? Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. So one, keeping them happy matters. And we already know the relationships that both of them have and the respect that they have for his acumen as a player and a really great player in this league and as a coach. On top of that, I don't know that I've seen, and of course with Luka, it's very particular because he's had one other coach, right? Who are we comparing this to? But with Luka and in Kyrie, I don't know that I've seen a coach demand and also receive as much out of either of those players as you've seen with Jason Kidd, right? Is it possible that someone else could do that, as you mentioned? Yes, it's possible. Do you want to go out there and find that? And I don't know that you want to do that with the comfort level that you have built with that triumvirate of people. That matters. On top of then adding the idea that the defense has reached an incredible level, and you've seen that with the right players, which you have gotten in there, you're capable of doing that. all of those things give you a certain level of comfort, especially when you consider the level of playing, the results that you have gotten, at least when we talk about process on the court, before we talk about the results of games, is a team that is widely considered by, the smart people in the league to be some level of contender, right? And I think that that's all of that adds up to a coach that you continue to ride with until you've seen vividly that you have bumped against the ceiling,
And it had felt like, okay, we got the first year of Jason Kidd, 52 wins, Western Conference Finals. Okay, man, he's way better than I thought as a coach and got them to a point. So there was no questions after the first season. Then the second season, 38 wins, missed the postseason entirely on purpose at the end of the season.
Right.
And so then you go, all right, well, now I got some big questions. And then about halfway through this year, you go, man, those questions are still coming up. It looks like the same stuff on defense. Live and die by the three. The defense is getting killed by some of these teams that can move fast. And it's like, all right, well, how much are we just going to run this scheme into the ground? He was still doing some of the stuff where he's like,
you gotta ask them. I'm just the coach.
And you're like, okay, man, like at a certain point, you've got to take responsibility for some of this stuff. And then you get the right players. And you know what? Sometimes you just get the right players. And I've been under the assumption, and I believe this, there are certain coaches in the NBA that elevate a team. I think Spoelstra is one of those coaches. I believe Ty Lue is one of those coaches. I think Coach of the Year Mark Daigneault is probably one of those coaches that the Mavs are going to see in this next round. Right. I think there are also coaches that bring down your team. I think Darvin Ham probably did that for the Lakers. I think there are certain coaches. I think Chauncey Billups is probably bringing his team down for the Blazers right now. And I think that there are certain coaches on those ends of the bell curve. And I think a lot of the other ones just waffle in the middle, where it depends on what you have. And it turns out the highs can be high with Jason Kidd and the lows can be really, really low.
Yeah, especially when you talk about, if it's us talking about this, whether it's media types or just fans on the outside, there is a particular bad patina on this because his bedside manner is so bad, right? Like the way that he talks to us, he don't respect us at all, right? He talks crazy.
What are you talking about?
I don't always tell you guys the truth.
What do you
That's
mean?
right. That's right. He talks crazy to us, so that also changes the dynamic on the way that we view him. But there's real criticisms to bring up when it comes to like schematics, and that's not to say that the schematics have been all the way bad. I've defended his process all the way through that Clipper series, and I do mean all the way through that series. But yeah, I think you're right. Like there's somewhere in the middle, and like at what point in the middle is to be determined. But at this point, especially when you look at one more season going, we talked about the relationships that he has. And then I don't think that you can completely wholesale write off the idea that the potential of him being poached away then puts you in a place where you're like, hey, let's add all these up, pros, cons lists. And I think ultimately it's more positive than it is negative. And I don't say that with any disrespect. I know some people will hear that and say I'm knocking him down. But ultimately, however much more positive than negative, we could debate that. But ultimately, I think we can all agree it's more positive than negative. And so this only makes sense.
The other thing about this whole thing and the difference between Jason Kidd's position and Darvin Ham's, and one of them is because the Mavs moved on to the next round in this one. But the Lakers made the Western Conference Finals last year. It's not like they were a dumpster fire and then Darvin Ham made them a dumpster fire or whatever. He didn't light the fuse of the dumpster fire. Darvin Ham had lost the locker room. And you had many examples of Lakers players coming out and questioning what they were doing, questioning the scheme, questioning like a lot of different things. And Jason Kidd has not lost the locker room at all. There has not been a single whiff of anything that Jason Kidd has lost his locker room. And honestly, that's one of the biggest hurdles. We talked about the stars and him like getting those stars to play together, but getting the rest of the locker room to buy in and buy into their roles. All these guys have bought into their roles. I mean, as much as maybe Tim Hardaway Jr. has begrudgingly like become a sixth man and like accepted his role, that's maybe the one thing we've heard this year of like a guy that isn't really into the role that he's playing right now. But everybody else is so locked in. He got Derek Lively to play in a great spot and a great role. He brought in Gafford and had him on the bench and off the bench and all this and like navigated all these things. And so like when a coach starts checking some of the boxes, even though you get frustrated and have been frustrated, and I was one of the leaders of this whole thing of being frustrated with some of the things Jason Kidd, when he starts checking the boxes of things that you want for your coach to do, you got to admit when it was, when it was fine. And now it's a fine move that they bring like they continue to have him. My question though, coming up though, Reggie, is if it gets bad again and all of a sudden he starts unchecking some of these boxes, can they fire him? Can they get to that point, or is he getting too entrenched into the organization? I think I have an answer. We'll talk about that coming up. Today's episode is brought to you by Betterhelp. Betterhelp has you covered when you just need somebody. Today, I went to therapy. It was online, and I needed to just talk through some of the things that happened over the weekend or happened to my trip in LA. I had, some moments where I was having high anxiety, and I just needed to talk through what happened in my situation. And BetterHelp can give you a person to do that. They can help you get you matched with a therapist. You know that you're going to match with somebody that is there for you, that is going to answer some of those questions, but also ask you the right questions that you need to answer yourself too. So you might be thinking about starting therapy. It's different for every single person. Most of us have bigger problems than our favorite sports teams, and it's important to get things off your chest every once in a while. So if you're thinking about therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be flexible, suited to your schedule. Visit betterhelp.com/LockedOnNBA to get 10% off your first month. Again, you can get matched with a therapist. If you don't vibe with that one for the first time, switch at any time. They know and they understand that you need to find somebody that you feel that you can trust, you feel confident with, and sometimes just takes vibes in that first meeting, and you're like, I don't think this is going to be the person for me. BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA. Again, BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA.
That's it. It's me versus the machines. The Matrix is taking over. That's it. They want us to be perfect.
Thanks for hanging out with us on Locked On Mavs, being part of this show, part of the Raccoon Squad, listening every day. Appreciate each and every one of you who listen to this show. If you didn't hear the drop coming out of that break, is my favorite new video of the Mavericks at practice, where Kyrie Irving is shooting shots, and he's taking a bunch of shots from different spots on the court, and they have this screen on the wall. And you and I have seen it. You scan in, and then they monitor what shots you've made and what shots you've missed from all over the court. And Kyrie goes over to the chart, and it's like that's
it. It's me versus the machines. The Matrix is taking over. That's it. They want us to be perfect. Basketball isn't perfect. It's beautiful.
But basketball isn't perfect. It's beautiful.
Only Kyrie could take a moment of just like pure exhilaration in his own, aptitude in playing basketball and turned it into a grind set-esque lecture. Shout out to him for being himself, but also shout out to him for being in this vibes. Like you mentioned, right. the idea of like he is in a good space. It's very evident that he's in a good space. He's happy where he is, and that's when he's most productive, man.
Isaac and I used to play this game all the time. It's the 30 for 30 trailer. What if I told you? What if I told you that we would be talking about a Jason Kidd at the end of last year? We would be talking about a Jason Kidd suspension and Kyrie Irving talking about the Matrix taking over in the same day. And both of them were positive things for the
That's right. I do want to make it clear. You meant extension. Jason Kidd did not do anything wrong. You said suspension on accident, and that's a very different thing. Just so if for anyone that recoiled in that moment, Jason Kidd's fine. He didn't do anything wrong. There were no diss tracks that were dropped that put any allegations on his name. He just got a new contract extension. That's all.
Family matters. Meet the kids. There's going to be so many accusations of Freudian slip on that one. I'm not going to be able to escape that.
No, you're not beating the allegations. It's not happening.
You know who's also not going to be able to escape is the Mavs and Jason Kidd. They've signed the contract extension. Now he's going to be on for a couple more years. The details haven't been fully disclosed and all that. But one of the big questions is, can they win with Jason Kidd? And they've won 3 playoff series in 3 years. That's more than the Clippers have with Ty Lue.
That's right. Absolutely. I mean, look, we've seen teams win with coaches that I've thought less of before, right? Like in this league, there's still something to be said for the amount of talent, especially at the top end of your roster, that does something. Now we're in an era of this league where there's a lot more talent out there, but you got a lot more of the top end of your roster here than a lot of other places. So, I mean, regardless of what you think, there is the capability of winning. But actually but in the other way, we've seen coaches that you imagine you should be able to win with that haven't and then lose their job. So all relative, my boy, all relative.
I did this right before the playoffs with the Mavericks, or even before the season ended. And I was like, what are the big questions for the Mavericks going into a playoffs? And I was like, coaching. Kidd has proven he can win games. When has shaky coaching held teams back in the past? Listen to some of these names that have made either the finals or have won the title.
I'm super excited for this.
Phoenix, Monty Williams.
Yeah.
He doesn't look like a great coach right now. Took his team all the way to the finals. Did it matter then? I don't know.
We got really excited about that Monty Williams thing for a very short period of time.
Milwaukee, Mike Budenholzer still doesn't have a job.
That might be fixed this year.
Won a title with the Bucks and is now not there anymore.
That's right.
How about probably twice fired now, Frank Vogel, who won a title with the Lakers and got let go from there and may get let go from the Suns as well. Here's a name. Do you know who won? You went to the 2015 finals for the Cavs. You know who's coaching?
Was that that was I almost called him.
It was not Ty Lue.
David Blatt.
David Blatt.
The man who wanted to be the smartest man in the room all the time.
Went to the finals. The finals and got fired just after that year. Just went to the finals, got fired. That was it. Ran into the Warriors, got fired.
Talk about losing the locker room.
2012, I'll go all the way back. Scott Brooks in OKC made it to the finals and got fired in 2015. You know, so it's like, and didn't have, like, went and coached the Wizards and didn't do anything there either. So it's like, shaky coaching has not held back some of these teams. If you got the right collection of talent and that coach can bring that right stuff out of those players, then boom, that's all you need. My question though is, can they fire him if it gets bad again? Like, some of the downfalls of Jason Kidd, I think, are that the offense is going to stay the same. It's going to stay this Luka Kyrie centric, ISO pick and roll only, nobody else. Now, maybe personnel will change some of that, but personnel didn't change their defensive scheme. Their defensive scheme is exactly the same when they had terrible defensive players, when it was, oh my God. Who do I slander now?
Good luck with that. That is a jump pass if I ever saw one. Good luck finding the outlet, buddy.
It's the same as when they had old Reggie Bullock and Christian Wood, as the same now when they have Daniel Gafford and PJ Washington. They played the exact same defense. I think they do the same thing with the offense, right? And so that's the downfall. And I think the lows, like I mentioned before, the lows can get really low. Kidd did not believe in this team last year, and maybe he was right to, but he gave up on that team real quick. And he stopped trying stuff and, was like, all right, we'll just do whatever. And then every once in a while he would throw in like the JaVale McGee, Christian Wood starting lineup just to like make a point against that Hawks team. But I think those are the two downfalls of Jason Kidd. But the positives seem to be outweighing those negatives right now because they're winning and because the stars are playing well together.
Yeah, I mean, the question of can they still fire him is absolutely yes. The caveat being, how bad does it have to get, right? And some of the things that you're mentioning, I think, can be waved away in some ways.
My thing about it though is it's not even about his production. Can they fire him? It's does he become such a part of the organization that he won a title here? Dirk was the one that picked him for coach. He came in as sort of a quote unquote package deal with Nico Harrison.
Right.
Mark Cuban's not the guy anymore at the top necessarily. And so, like, can they, if he's that big part of an organization, like, does he keep gaining more and more, I guess, power, for lack of a better term, in the organization, that they're like, all right, we can't let him go because now he's like a legend with us?
I mean, the answer remains yes. The problem is just like, or maybe not problem, this isn't the right word, but if it becomes abundantly clear that you are the issue, right? Everybody can get gone in those instances, right? I'm sure there were points that we looked at Donnie Nelson as never could he get gone. Look around.
That's right. This is what I'm saying.
Right. But you look around and eventually it becomes, oh, this is a abundantly clear issue. Yeah, man, this has to end. Right. And so I think some of the things that you're talking about that absolutely can be issues as of right now, a lot of these you can point to as instances. Maybe you can't necessarily run a very long thread through those. If they become to be more than instances, if they become trends, if they become consistencies, right? And if it becomes evident that those are things that are holding you back, well, then I think that is a time where you need to make that jump. And, right, as much as we talk about the relationships that stars have, stars grow into a point where they feel like they have different level of perspectives on things. And Luka Doncic is still relatively young in this, right? Luka ultimately seems to be the biggest, and seems is a stupid word to use there, is the biggest factor when it comes to your franchise. If he looks up at some point and he does the math, because he's not a stupid guy at some point, and of course, I'm not saying that this will happen, but if it becomes a case where Jason Kidd is an issue and he looks around and he goes, well, this is how we need to get better, right? Like that is a holding us back. The decision gets made. But I think then the reasonable, next step in logic is how likely is that worst case scenario that you're describing?
Yeah, if the lows start to get low again, can they get to a point where they can fire him? That is my one big question on this. And that's the one thing where I'm going, all right, well, we'll see. If he just gets more entrenched and Nico and Kidd become more and more of a package deal, and, like, I don't know. Maybe they make the Western Conference Finals again this year if they beat the Thunder. Then that's 2 Western Conference Finals in 3 years, and then all of a sudden you're like, all right, well, now there's proof of concept to believe in Kidd as a coach and to believe in this team. And you know what? Maybe that's all you need. And maybe like you just need that proof of concept and proof that he can win games, and that's all you ask of a coach, and that's all you ask of a team, really. They have only exceeded expectations in the playoffs. They have never like underachieved when they've made the playoffs. Now they completely missed the postseason last year, so there's that.
And I mean,
against them.
There's ways that you could look around and say that that's not as much about coaching as it was about talent, right? Like there are still things, and I think again for me it becomes isolating the variable. If you can get closer and closer to the idea that, oh no, we have isolated for all these other variables, and you are the one remaining standing in this hypothetical situation, which is a negative Jason Kidd in the future, then I think that I believe that this organization would have that level of ability to move on from him. But maybe I'm just hopeful. Like maybe you end up looking up at that point and you're like, oh no, he's too entrenched. I don't think that you're in. I think that this organization operates in a place where they're reasonable enough to do those things.
That is an optimistic view, I think, of what this organization has done.
I understand.
But I think my main thing here from this is when you've got to admit when you're wrong, and you've got to admit when Jason Kidd is checking enough boxes that he has done the things that you would want a coach to do, and like the organization's moving forward, the chemistry is good, he's got the players behind him, and the team is winning, and they're winning games they're supposed to, and they're not losing games that they're not losing. They really haven't lost a lot of games lately, and so when he has the talent, he can win. He's proven that 2 out of 3 years. Coming up, let's give our keys to game 1. What do the Mavericks absolutely need to do? How does Tim Hardaway Jr. factor in this? Because, newsflash, he is playing in game 1. How does he factor into all that? We'll talk about that coming up. Today's episode is brought to you by DoorDash. Your mom for Mother's Day needs the right kind of gift. You don't just want to give her flowers if she doesn't want that. You got to give her the thing that she actually needs. She deserves a thoughtful gift with the convenience that you need. You can choose same-day delivery or schedule a week ahead when it comes to flowers and gifts that should arrive at her door with DoorDash. DoorDash can help you, again, same day or schedule the week ahead. So if you're somebody that procrastinates and you're like, oh my gosh, I cannot believe that I forgot that, DoorDash will deliver those flowers from one place to another. It's not just meals. It's not just food. They can deliver from anywhere. Convenience stores, grocery stores. They can go to retail stores too. Anywhere where a person can go inside and grab something and buy something and come out. They can get that for you at DoorDash. So get a Mother's Day gift as unique as your mom is with DoorDash. Use the code LOCKEDONNBA to get 50% off your next order, up to $15 when you spend $15 or more on your next flower, convenience, grocery, or retail order now on DoorDash. Again, use that promo code LOCKEDONNBA. Order using DoorDash today. Terms apply at DoorDash.
I don't always tell you guys the truth.
All right, Reggie, let's talk about Mavs Thunder Game 1. We did the crossover with Rylan Stiles last 2 days. Did 2 episodes, so if you missed either of those, go check out those if you want in-depth stuff on the Mavs, how they match up with the Thunder, and how the Thunder actually play and match up. A lot of people thought that Rylan was too high on the Thunder. Guys, you know they're a 57-win team that is super young, has an MVP candidate on it, and was a top 5 offense and defense this season, right? Like we all know this about them.
Doesn't matter. Mavs in 3.
I guess not. Mavs in 3. My first key is this. Tim Hardaway Jr. will play in game 1. What's his role now? What do you expect from Tim Hardaway Jr. in his first game back now since the first couple games of the Clippers series? They're coming to pick him up.
Yeah, that timing was incredible. Maybe this is too low because I know the infatuation this team has with Tim Hardaway Jr. But I'm like, Josh Green minutes. All your minutes are become Tim Hardaway Jr. Like it feels like
all of them.
That very much feels like. I mean, if you're looking, and I mean, Josh Green is going to still have to have some minutes. You're losing Maxi Kleber. Like I imagine that rotation kind of I don't know, levels out. But it feels, at least to me, and you tell me if I'm wrong here, the things that Josh Green was actually able to bring during the course of the Clipper series, Tim Hardaway Jr. can bring fairly easily. And I say that because I was fairly low on Josh Green during the course of that series, understanding that he brought energy and everything, but perimeter defense wasn't at the level that I would thought was that he could bring. The shooting was okay, but not incredible. Like I think the things that Tim Hardaway Jr. can do that, right? And I don't think that is me singing like super high praises. Tim Hardaway Jr. can do that while also being the guy that is capable of doing the Maxi Kleber 5 3-pointers in a game, right? And so it makes sense in my mind that you have Tim Hardaway Jr. out there a little bit more, understanding that you can make it work with when it comes to like defensively, the ways that he might have some liabilities.
Yeah, so if you look back to game 1, Tim played just under 16 minutes. Josh played 9 minutes. They both played in that game. Maxi played in that game. Yeah, everybody basically played in that game. And so that's what I'm kind of looking at now with those two, is that Tim moves up a little bit in the rotation because this team desperately needs 3-point shooters. They desperately need it, especially in this series. The Thunder allowed the most corner threes in the league. Almost 13% of the shots that are taken against them in the regular season were corner threes. That means PJ Washington, Derrick Jones Jr., Dante Exum, Josh Green, and Tim Hardaway Jr. You better learn corner three, buddy. Like, you better figure that out. And they got to hit some of those to win this series. They absolutely do. And Tim has a better chance. Tim has a better chance than Josh does. He really does. And the defense of Josh was not so good that we saw in the Clippers series that you're like, oh, well, you just can't. You just have to play that guy. I mean, it wasn't there.
Yeah. And on top of that, I think sometimes we focus so much on the actual makes and misses. And I know that sounds insane. You're like, Reggie, makes and misses are what this league is about, right? Absolutely. But also like the perception of this, what defenses believe and what they are willing to shift on matters. And for some reason, I understand there's a lot of people that are like, Reggie, look at the season that he's had. Look at the last 2 seasons that he's had. Tim Hardaway Jr., right? There are times with stretches where it's good. There are stretches where it's abundantly bad. I do not care. Around this league, people respect that man's shooting ability.
Yeah,
you don't got to argue with me about it. It's just what it is. But with that being the case, you put him out there and that forces defense to account for him in a way that I don't know that you have very many of those on this roster outside of your top 2 guys. And so I think that matters. Now, of course, if he's shooting you out of game, it's a problem. But I think that it matters that he has that level of respect from defenses. And I think that shifts the way some of this goes.
Tim's got to be better to earn the minutes, right? He's going to get some. Sure. He's going to get some opportunity this game 1, but he has to be better too because he had not been playing his best basketball to end the season. And even that first game against the Clippers, he only played under 16 minutes in the first game and 6 minutes in the second before he got injured. But towards the end of the season, I mean, he was not shooting the ball well at all. He's got to be better there too. He also can't 100%. Be a negative on defense. Like that's got to be a thing that he has to make sure that he's a negative on defense when he's off the ball and he falls asleep. Westbrook got a dunk over him in game 1 when he was just running back door and Tim just completely fell asleep at the wheel. Can't do that. Like, can't get away with that against this Thunder team at all. Didn't get away with it in game 1 against the Clippers because they lost that game.
Right.
Nobody thought that they would. So he's got to be better in that way. But I think that his role now, I think he'll play like 15 minutes. And I think that they have to hope that he can hit a couple of shots, provide the spacing like Reggie said, and that he can't be a negative on defense. My next key is Kyrie. This is your moniker that you've coined. Can he clock in a little earlier? Can he clock in a little bit earlier? Because
that's it. It's me versus the machines. The Matrix is taking over. That's it. They want us to be perfect.
We want him to be perfect, but also, like, I was talking with Rylan, and they're going to probably put Jalen Williams on him. They could put Shea on him. They could try Cason Wallace on him at times. And I started thinking through some of those options. Like, those are all solid defenders. I don't think it matters to Kyrie Irving right now. He's playing on such a good level that it's on him to make a decision. Rylan was trying to get out of me, how do you stop Kyrie? And I was like, man, I don't know that there's an answer besides try to put length on him and send a double. And then if you send a double, then you're in trouble because then you're doubling and Luka is on single coverage on the other side of the court. So I think it's Kyrie clock in a little bit earlier and give him a little bit more, especially depending on how Luka does. I got that word out, right?
That's right. No, I mean, like, you're right. Like, stopping Kyrie is getting the ball out of his hands.
Yeah,
I'm with you, right? Like, making sure that you clock in at a decent time so that all of the what is the right word? Pressure isn't necessarily sitting on Luka's shoulders, but I also anticipate Luka to be significantly better, and the distribution of responsibility of running the offense might go back to a lot more of what we're used to seeing from this team this season, right? If he is not having the struggles, particularly from the outside, as you're going to have open shots available to you. This might not even not even be necessary for Kyrie to change the way that the flow that he's built with Luka Doncic in this offense.
I'm sorry, I was laughing because I just looked over and I saw a picture of Ben Simmons at the Met Gala, and
Also, he's going to be a model now. Good for him to find a career after basketball.
He has a briefcase with a giant clock on it, which I think counts down to the end of his contract.
Wow. Good for him.
He is. He's serving up looks. He's serving up looks and not dimes anymore. Oh man. Last one I think is Luka. How does Luka look? That's a huge one. If Luka looks back to the Luka that we have come to know and love and a playoff riser, then great. If he looks still looked like an all-star against the Clippers, but didn't look like the playoff Luka that we're used to. But if he looks like that guy, then the Mavericks have to make up for it with corner threes, and their defense has to be good and all that. Mark Daignault was asked about preparing against Luka, and he said, quote, "Just make sure Lou Dort is on time for the game."
Yeah, all right. Like, look, Lou Dort is going to get into him, but I don't think. Yeah, I don't think he's going to necessarily stop Luka Doncic from getting to his. Now, what I am interested in addition to this, neither of these teams turn the ball over that much. The Thunder turn teams over a lot, though, and you do not want to allow them to get into their transition. So I think on Kyrie and more importantly Luka as well, what it's going to be is making sure that they remain clean. Now they haven't been terrible at turnovers, but you can't afford to let that team get going and giving them easy buckets because it's not like they're a bad offensive team already.
That's it. Go listen to the crossovers. If you didn't listen to those, go hang out with us if you're in OKC on Wednesday at the Collective at 7 p.m. Come hang out with me and Jimmy from All Things Mavs and others if they're there. And yeah, we'll be there. Slightly and I will have the game covered tomorrow. I'll be there in OKC. Guys, thanks for listening to Locked on Mavs. One more time.
That's it. It's me versus the machines. The Matrix is taking over. That's it. They want us to be perfect.
Peace out.